Mike in Washington. Mike, what's on your mind?
Yeah, this kind of off subject, but I have an idea for the iPhone.
Okay.
The widget, like, you know, the Obama, you click on the widget and it brings up Obama's little site.
Okay.
I think Alex needs to have one of these so you can, if you look at Obama's thing, you can just go with it.
Well, I'll tell you what, right now I'm looking at Infowars.com, and he's got something on the right that says, listen to the Alex Jones Show live on your cell phone. So maybe you can do that. I mean, that's probably coming up. We're moving into new offices. We're trying to put together new things. I'm putting together my own show. We're trying to become more of a mainstream outlet to people. I mean, we can only do so much. I mean, when you literally have a staff, and I'm not part of that staff, I'm a staff of one, but when you have a staff like Alex of 10 people, and 2 of those guys work in the newsroom, and they're also your main editors. I mean, they're also your main cameramen. It is tough to do everything, but we do need your help. All right, let's jump to yet another call. Let's go to Carlisle in Texas. Carlisle, you're on the line with Ray McGovern and myself.
Hey, I actually have something to plug. It's kind of off the subject from what you guys have been talking about.
Okay.
But it has to do with how Chief Acevedo wants to use the federal grants to forcibly, take people's blood that refuse breathalyzers.
Okay.
And I know Alex Jones had Chief Acevedo, on about that. And he was saying how he wants to have a dialogue and engage the public, but, we've been trying to contact him for the last 4 months. So what we're going to do is on Halloween night at 9 o'clock on 4th and Lavaca, we're going to stage a protest to try and, get his air and get him to actually come down here and explain how that program is supposed to prevent drunk driving, but it doesn't prevent it at all.
Okay, so what time is that going to take place?
It's going to be at 9 o'clock on Friday, on Halloween night.
Okay, all right, man. You got it. Thanks for the plug. All right, let's jump to Andy in North Carolina. Andy, what's on your mind?
Mr. McGovern, how are you, sir?
Hi, Andy.
Hey, Jason, how are you, buddy?
Good, man.
Hey, listen, Mr. McGovern, I was going to ask you, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Ryan in Kentucky.
You mentioned that you were slightly dismayed by the fact that Hillary didn't get the nomination.
Not dismayed, just really, 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 really happy that someone who did something crass for political purpose, and as a result, 4,200 U.S. servicemen are killed, that it turned out to be just the opposite of what she expected. The war turned sour, and the person who was against the war from the beginning won the nomination. That should be an object lesson to all people who make important decisions based on their ambitions to be president or whatever.
Well, I certainly agree that to see Hillary go down is a good thing, and that is a victory if that's the case. My thing is a little bit larger point. I was left dumbfounded because I guess I become intellectually lazy that Hillary was going to be given the nomination, and we would just continue as we had, because I figured if Bush was going to create this police state, if he's going to leave it, he's going to leave it to someone that's going to continue on that thing. And I think while we were all sleeping, and maybe you could speak to this or maybe you disagree, that this thing that Tarpley talks about, I used to think he was a windbag, really, but I got to listening to him. This whole Obama thing and the fascism thing, he's on to it, and I think that maybe we've sleptwalked through this, and we're going to get a dictator that everybody loves,
Rick
which
in
is way
Reno?
more scary than one that's that's hated.
Well, let me say this. I'm definitely fearful of that. I think Tarpley has somewhat of an ultra perspective on, Obama bringing, super fascism to the United States. I don't see that. But I do, unfortunately, I differ from Mr. McGovern, and I do see him bringing in more globalization. I did not like his speech in Berlin again. 1.5 million man youth brigade talking about global citizenship. He seems to be on the wrong side of the coin on the carbon tax debate, and I think a lot of people are going to love him. Like I said, I disagree with Tarpley, where he says that Obama isn't that well spoken and he stutters and stammers. I don't see that much at all, and I watch him in extended periods of time. I see him as a confident man who can look you in the eye. He can orate well, and he is good with his hands and his head motion. He's very good at answering questions and seeming credible and smart. So, I don't see that. Do you want to speak to that, Mr. McGovern? What do you think? Obviously you're in support of him.
Well, it's a compared to what sort of thing. And you're quite right. We're going to have to wait and see. But I'm less concerned about the global aspects that seem to trouble so many people.
Mm-hmm.
If adopting a global perspective means going back and realizing that the new guidelines for war, for example, were set up after World War II, and resulted in the Charter of the United Nations, which prohibits any country from conducting a preventive attack or a, quote, preemptive, end quote, attack of the kind that Bush and Cheney have done. You're not allowed to attack another country unless there's an imminent threat to your country, and nobody argues there was an imminent threat. This crew thought they could change not only international law as contained in the UN Charter, but national law, because, as you know, once the Senate approves such a charter, and it did something like 95-2, once the Senate approves it, it becomes the law of the land. And so a war of aggression is just not a really good thing to do, and to the degree Obama is focusing in on this kind of thing, that we ought to have a modicum of respect for the law. Well, I have my hats off to that kind of perspective.
All right, let's jump to Ryan in Kentucky. Ryan, what's on your mind?
I was calling about the recent news, the public health emergency for anthrax, botulism, and smallpox until 2015, and how that could possibly be played in the future, and also on how the Coast Guard is actually the agency in charge of a biotech or a pandemic flu release.
Well, to be honest, I don't really know much about this this new warning. Maybe you could send that over to Aaron at Infowars.com. I mean, again, some things slip through the cracks here. We don't get everything. We try to report as much as we can on our 4-hour radio show, but that is something, a point of interest we would be into. So please email that to Aaron at Infowars. All right, let's go to Rick in Reno. Rick, what's on your mind?
Is Obama going to have the coattails to end this war?
Well, I'll let Ray answer that on his perspective. Obviously, he's optimistic and hopeful that he does. I don't believe so. I mean, I see these de-escalation plans. They're already in place. They're talking about they're going to take a few thousand here and a few thousand there. But all it will take, in my mind at least, is an insurgency to keep the excuse to have these people there. I mean, Obama's been very slick with his stance on the war. He's, obviously said that we have to take care of problems at home before we can take care of problems abroad. He's very well spoken, but I will leave that question to Mr. McGovern. Do you think he's going to end this war?
Well, the war is over, folks. The Iraqis have invited us out. We cannot stay there illegally past the 31st of December. We will stay past the 31st of December, but we will incur the opprobrium of the whole world and the Iraqis. So it's just a matter of time, and it's just a matter of setting the timetable for withdrawal. Now, if we linger on like we did in Saigon and environs there in South Vietnam, then it's going to be a case of picking up the residual American presence off the rooftops of the billion-dollar embassy we've just created there in the Green Zone, and it's going to be a horror. But it need not be so. We need to listen to the Iraqis. 70% of the Iraqis, according to U.S. Army-sponsored surveys, 70% want us out of there. Okay? So all we have to do is disavow any intention to grab more than our share of the oil, to disavow any intention to build permanent military bases, and just say, okay, you can take this for real, international community, and then and only then, the Arab League countries, India, Pakistan, the West Europeans, they'll come in behind us and help us exit as gracefully as we can. Because they like us? No, they all hate us by now. But they're more interested in stability in that area than we are. And, of course, they're also interested in getting a portion of the oil. So it's over. It's just a matter of whether we linger for 2, 3, 4 more years and take the kinds of casualties that we've had since the surge, or whether we, in a more enlightened way, say, okay, Maliki, we understand the pressures you're under. We're not going to press to stay any longer than you want us, and just help us exit in as graceful a way as is possible. That's the answer. And for those who think that we have to stay there to referee a civil war between the Sunni and Shia, I mean, that just doesn't parse for me. I don't want one American young man or woman to perish because we're refereeing a civil war, and that's pretty much what it comes down to right now.
I'm with you there. Ray, you just talked about the oil, and I was just wondering your opinion on whether or not, this current economic crisis is going to continue to drop the price of oil by the barrel. And, how is this going to affect the oil industry? Do you think that they're just going to subside on their massive profits they've taken in the last 4 years for a little while? Do you think they're doing this, to maybe make the economic crisis a little less worse? What's your take on that?
Well, the price of oil fluctuates depending on how big a threat there seems to be in the Persian Gulf, and I think the oil companies are seeing what I reported earlier, that there's less likely to be a wider war there, and that the U.S. will have to depart. Now, the problem remains because, as I've said to countless audiences, one of the most important factoids in the international situation is that the world is running out of oil. Mm-hmm. And, so in a very real sense, you can look at the attack on Iraq.
All right, Ray, I do have to let you go. We're about to go to break. I thank you so much. I love having you on. Hopefully you'll join us soon.